My interpretation of the title Ecocide Drifter is ecocide referring to the intentional destruction of our ecosystem. And that can be through ignorance or it can be through cultural conditioning. And drifter refers to my process of collecting garbage that drifted up onto the shores of the Hudson River. That garbage became a part of the installation. This installation situates us within a dead riverbed. I'm taking a dystopian point of view of a wandering nomad in a post damage landscape ravaged by climate change. There is a Buddhist practice that intrigued me, death meditation, where you visualize your own mortality, your own death. And in doing so, you learn to cope with it with wisdom, insight, and patience. Too often we are in denial of death. Death and climate change are similar in that with both, we see them as something that will happen to us in the distant future, and it doesn't really affect us now. And I saw a great value in confronting our death through the earth. I referred to the rocky structures as Anthropocene stones. They are made of natural plaster, cardboard, natural pigments, and detritus that was collected along the shoreline of the Hudson River. They are stylized earthy forms because there is no wilderness that is untouched by man. So they represent a man-altered nature. My paintings envisioned the increasingly violent storms of climate change and a post-industrial landscape. They're mounted precariously on pieces of driftwood, and to me the driftwood represents nature that has been lost to us. The paintings are also a way for me to design structures that I would like to make in the future, like this raft that would act as a survival shelter, or this dwelling that I would like to make out of bamboo and straw. It would collect rainwater and cultivate plants around its periphery. Or this one that's designed to stand up to harsh winds, and it also cultivates kale from collected rainwater. Camp Solar Generator is made with reclaimed discarded materials that I collected, as well as bamboo and electrical components make up a 12-volt solar generation system. And I learned to put this all together through tinkering, trial and error, and reading DIY off the grid living books. It works like this: water is drawn into the belly of the sculpture through a storage bucket, and then a pump system is powered by the solar panels, which feeds its way out to plants surrounding the sculpture. A grow lamp is also powered and turns on occasionally to enhance growth in a few of the plants at a time. It's kind of a play on agriculture and our philosophy of being sort of the controllers of nature. Two plants that are being cultivated currently are mullein and aloe vera. Mullein has medicinal uses for lungs, and aloe vera is good at retaining water for long periods of time and also is used as a skin salve. Both of these would be indispensable in the harsh conditions of a post-damage landscape. In this broken land that we've shaped, one of our great misperceptions is that we are separate from or somehow superior to the biosphere. Wisdom Tent is a meditation hut designed for recentering ourselves as an interdependent part of nature. Visible on the front of Wisdom Tent is a focusing window where we can see discarded objects in front of black mesh. Inside the tent, it's pitch black with a meditation cushion. The tent is also designed to collect rainwater and channel that down to water collection buckets at the bottom. So probably you're seeing by now that this is all an interconnected system that makes up a survival camp. And that brings us to rainwater collector, which does just what it says. It catches rainwater, which is channeled down through 3 steps and split into 2 containers: a bottle for drinking water and a bucket which would go back to the solar generator and feed the plants. The last sculpture we come to in the Ecocide Drifter camp is titled Wind-Driven Solar Cooker with Potatoes. A parabolic reflector focuses and condenses a beam of light towards the center, which makes it good as a solar cooking device. It's not actually the light that cooks, but the infrared radiation. And I was drawn to using aluminum foil because it's a very cheap, accessible material, and yet it reflects 90% of solar radiation. A pulley system was jerry-rigged together using discarded objects, and wind turbines were fashioned out of discarded water bottles that washed up along the Hudson. If you look carefully, you will also see hand-whittled eating utensils hanging from the bamboo support pole. And on this rocky structure, I thought it was really important to leave a bit of the raw, weathered styrofoam showing. This type of styrofoam is constantly washing up along the shores of the Hudson. I don't like the idea of working with styrofoam. I find it a problematic material, but as an act of reclamation, I find it justified to use. A worn-out globe acts as a flywheel, but it's also an object to reflect upon our values regarding the Earth. We see the globe as a series of divisions and ownership of land and resources, instead of seeing ourselves as an interrelated and inseparable part of a delicate global ecosystem. Arctic Wrecked is a fictional scene based on current realities of a sort of last iceberg floating amongst 4 oil barges that are rusted and neglected. I was thinking about how superstructures that humans build are eventually left to waste, yet we're left to deal with their consequences long after. Dry riverbed with rainwater generator and kale shows a nomadic version of a hydroelectric power plant. It catches rainwater, which is funneled down to turbines that generate electricity and store it in a 12-volt battery. It shows a harsh rainstorm, but a riverbed and soil that were lost to desertification, which is one of the symptoms of climate change. This piece was partially the inspiration for creating the dry riverbed in Ecocide Drifter. Floating Nomad and Hurricane depicts a survival raft surfing through turbulent weather, and it reflects upon the increasingly common events of hurricanes due to climate change, but also the increasingly violent climate causes more climate refugees. We are causing the displacement of our own homes. More and more people will be required to move to find new livelihoods with more and more limited resources. And so we've come full circle, and you can see the connection between this character of the wandering nomad that inhabits this survival camp. Thank you for taking the time to listen to how I think about Ecocide Drifter, and thanks for visiting.